We hear it all the time. A growing economy is a good thing. But what does that really mean for a country? And more importantly, for the people who actually live there? Today, we're digging into the huge difference between a rich country and a poor one.
And really, it all comes down to two key ideas that sound super similar but are actually worlds apart: growth versus development.
All right, so first up, you've got economic growth. This is pretty straightforward, right? It's about a country's economy getting bigger. It's producing more stuff, more services, and the output for each worker is going up. At its core, it's all about scale.
But then you have economic development. And this is, well, it's a whole lot deeper. This isn't just about making more stuff, it's about fundamental structural changes happening within a society. Things like moving from farming to manufacturing or seeing cities boom. It's about a complete transformation.
Here's a great way to think about it. Economic growth is like a kid just getting taller. But development? That's the same kid learning how to read, how to solve problems, how to do completely new things. One is just about size, but the other? That's about capability.
Okay, so let's really dig in here, because while growth sounds fantastic on paper, it comes with this pretty big paradox. See, a bigger economy doesn't automatically mean a better life for everybody.
Look, on the bright side, the upsides are obvious. Economic growth can mean more jobs, which is great. It can mean more money for the government to spend on things like schools and roads, and for a lot of people, the standard of living does improve.
But, and this is a huge but, growth that happens too fast or without any planning can cause some serious problems. We're talking more pollution, cities that become overcrowded, and this is the big one, a situation where a person's actual welfare, their material, moral, and psychological well-being, doesn't get any better at all.
And that right there, that's the heart of the problem. When all that new money from growth doesn't get shared evenly, it creates these massive gaps, this deep inequality, that becomes a huge roadblock to real, meaningful progress.
So, this inequality leads us straight into what's known as the poverty trap. For what we call less developed countries, or LDCs, the problems they face aren't just isolated issues, they're all tangled together in this systemic trap.
You often see these four major imbalances. Their economies are almost entirely based on agriculture. Their populations are incredibly young. A staggering amount of the wealth, like 80%, is owned by just 5% of the people. And, of course, almost everyone works in farming.
And on top of all that, you've got these four fundamental things that are just missing. There's not enough education, not enough infrastructure like roads and internet, not enough capital to invest in new businesses, and not enough people with money to buy things. An economy just can't get going.
This quote, man, it just perfectly captures the human side of the poverty trap. When your entire life is just about surviving until tomorrow, there's nothing left over. There are no savings, no way to invest in the future, so the cycle just keeps going, generation after generation.
Now, there's another massive piece of this puzzle, something that locks this trap firmly in place that you might not expect. The absolutely crushing weight of foreign debt that so many of these countries are buried under.
And when you see the number, it's just mind-blowing. The total external debt for LDCs is more than $500 billion. Just try to wrap your head around that. That's an unbelievable amount of money flowing out of the world's poorest countries and back to the richer ones.
And to see what this actually means for people, just look at Malawi back in 2002. This was a country where 1 in 5 people was HIV positive. And yet, they were forced to spend more money paying back their debt than they spent on healthcare for their own citizens. It's just devastating. So you're looking at all this, and you have to ask, right? How on earth do you break a cycle like this? What's the way out? Well, the answer, as you can probably guess, isn't simple. It's really a two-way street. It's a shared responsibility. The LDCs have to do their part, building better infrastructure, fighting corruption, and creating political stability. But at the same time, developed countries have a huge role to play by increasing aid, making trade fairer, and, this is so important, restructuring or just plain eliminating that crushing debt. It's about building a system where a country can finally stand on its own feet.
For a long time, people have tried to create a kind of roadmap for this journey. One of the most famous theories came from an economist named Walt Rostow, who laid out these clear stages that he believed every country has to go through.
His big idea was that societies move through these 5 distinct stages. You start as a traditional farm-based society. Then you build the preconditions for takeoff. Then comes the takeoff, your industrial revolution.
After that, you drive to maturity, and finally, you arrive at the age of mass consumption. It's a really influential idea, even if today a lot of people think it's maybe a little too neat and tidy for the messy reality of the world.
But all of this focus on economic stages, it makes you wonder, right? Is a country's economic output really the best way to measure if it's successful, or are we missing something way more important?
And that's where there's been this big shift in thinking. A lot of people now say, hey, wait a minute. The ultimate goal shouldn't just be about the economy. It should be about people and what they are capable of doing and being.
And that is precisely why the Human Development Index, or the HDI, was created. It was designed to pull the focus away from just the money and put it back onto human well-being.
So instead of just looking at something like gross national income, the HTI pulls together 3 totally different but super important pillars to get a fuller picture. First, health. Are people living long, healthy lives? Second, knowledge. Are they educated? And third, a decent standard of living, which is about income. This is why a country that's rich in oil might actually have a lower HDI than a poorer country with great healthcare and schools.
So here's the big takeaway. When we change our focus from what a country produces to how its people are actually living, we get a completely different answer to our original question. And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. What else might we be missing when we try to measure what makes a nation truly successful?